Imagine waking up every day with no arms, no legs, and the world around you telling you everything you can't do. Now, imagine using that very world of limitations as the backdrop to create a life with no boundaries. Today, I stand before you to tell you that your circumstances do not define you. The struggles you face, no matter how heavy, are not your chains, they are your wings. This is not just another motivational talk. It's not about telling you to dream bigger, think positive. It's about challenging you to see your obstacles in a new light and to realize that your greatest power lies not in what you have, but in what you choose to do with it. I want to show you how with no limbs, I found no limits. And I'm here to tell you that if I can do it, so can you. At some point in our lives, we are all confronted by something that feels impossible. It could be a personal struggle, a goal that seems out of reach, or a challenge that seems insurmountable. The very word impossible can paralyze us, making us believe that some things are simply beyond our ability or control. But here's a truth that most people don't realize. Impossible is just a word, a mental barrier we put up because we are afraid to try. When I was born, I had no arms and no legs. To the world, I seemed to have no chance. Life seemed impossible. The simple act of doing what others take for granted, like walking, hugging, or even feeding myself, was out of the question. I grew up in a world that didn't seem built for someone like me. I was faced with rejection, mockery, and loneliness. People often assumed I couldn't do things before even giving me a chance to try. It felt like the world had already written me off, and it seemed impossible to break through those barriers. But that mindset, believing that something is impossible, was something I had to challenge. It wasn't the world around me that needed to change. It was how I viewed the world. I realized that the impossible is often a limitation of the mind, not a reflection of reality. The moment I stopped accepting impossible as a valid excuse, I began to see possibilities everywhere. The first step in embracing the impossible is recognizing that the boundaries we perceive are often self-imposed. It's easy to say, I can't do this when the odds are against us, but in reality, it's our own fear of failure, our self-doubt, and our limited thinking that keeps us from pushing forward. When we face something that feels impossible, we have two choices. We can either let it define us, or we can rise up and redefine it. Every success story you hear, every person who has overcome great obstacles started by believing that the impossible could be turned into possible. These are not special people with extraordinary gifts. They are people who refuse to let their circumstances dictate their future. The real power lies not in the absence of obstacles, but in the determination to move forward despite them. For me, learning to walk, learning to live a full life without limbs, these were not easy tasks. But I didn't focus on what I didn't have. I focused on what I could do. I learned to use my body in ways no one thought possible. I became an advocate for people who felt forgotten or incapable, showing them that if I could do it, so could they. By embracing the impossible, I shifted my thinking from I can't to how can I. It wasn't a matter of ignoring the challenges. I acknowledged them. But I also understood that I had the power to find solutions, to move forward one step at a time. That mentality became the driving force behind every accomplishment, every breakthrough. So, if you are facing something that feels impossible right now, whether it's a goal, a dream, or an obstacle in your path, I encourage you to shift your mindset. Don't be defined by what you think you cannot do. Instead, ask yourself, what can I do? What steps can I take to turn this impossible situation into something achievable? The moment you embrace the impossible, you will begin to see that your limitations are not as real as you once thought. And once you stop seeing limits, you'll realize there are none. Adversity is a universal experience. It comes in many forms: physical, emotional, financial, or even psychological. No one is exempt from facing hardship, but how we respond to adversity can determine the course of our lives. The truth is, adversity doesn't have to be a setback. It can be a setup for a greater comeback. The key is learning not just how to endure, but how to rise above, how to transform the pain and struggle into something that drives us forward instead of holding us back. When I was born without limbs, I could have easily surrendered to the limitations that the world saw in me. People around me were quick to tell me what I couldn't do. I couldn't play sports. I couldn't live independently. I couldn't pursue the things I dreamed of. There were constant reminders that I was different, that I was not normal. I could have allowed these constant reminders of my adversity to define me. And for a time, I almost did. But eventually I realized something fundamental. Adversity doesn't define who we are unless we let it. It can either be a roadblock or a stepping stone. That realization came after a long struggle of trying to fit into a world that wasn't designed for someone like me. There were moments of deep loneliness, days when I felt overwhelmed by the pressure to succeed or simply to be accepted. I had days when I doubted my worth, when the weight of rejection seemed unbearable. But adversity isn't something that simply happens to us. How we choose to face it that matters. Over time, I came to understand that adversity could be my greatest teacher. It pushed me to think differently, to find innovative solutions to problems that seemed insurmountable. It made me dig deeper into my inner strength and discover resources within myself that I never knew existed. Most importantly, it forced me to look beyond my circumstances and see my true potential, not in spite of my struggles, but because of them. We often think of adversity as something to avoid, something to eliminate from our lives. But the reality is we don't get to choose when adversity strikes. What we do have control over is how we respond to it. When faced with adversity, it's natural to feel fear, frustration, and doubt. But these feelings don't have to control us. They can be signals that we need to push through to grow stronger, to discover new ways to move forward. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned from facing adversity is that it's not about avoiding difficulty, it's about learning to face it with resilience. Resilience is not something we're born with, but something we cultivate through our experiences. It's the ability to face life's challenges head on without letting them break us. Resilience is what turns defeat into victory, failure into success, and setbacks into comebacks. As I look back on my life, I realized that the most defining moments came not when things were easy, but when I had to confront adversity head on. Those were the moments that shaped me, that taught me the value of perseverance and the strength of the human spirit. It was through overcoming adversity that I truly discovered who I am and what I am capable of. So if you are facing adversity right now, I encourage you to look at it differently. Don't see it as a barrier that keeps you from achieving your dreams. See it as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become the person you were meant to be. Your challenges don't define you. They are merely stepping stones that will lead you to your greatest achievements. The key is to never give up, no matter how difficult the road ahead may seem. Because when you choose to overcome adversity, you not only change your life, you inspire others to do the same. Every one of us has moments when we feel as though we don't have the strength to keep going. Life has a way of testing our endurance, and there are times when the challenges we face seem too great, too overwhelming to conquer. But what I've discovered is that true strength doesn't come from the absence of difficulty. It comes from the ability to find power even when everything around us feels like it's falling apart. We all have within us an inner strength. Sometimes it's buried beneath fear, doubt, or pain, but it is always there waiting to be unleashed. When I was born without limbs, I was confronted with challenges that most people couldn't even imagine. The physical obstacles alone were daunting. I had to figure out how to do basic things that others took for granted, getting out of bed, feeding myself, even learning how to move. There were moments when I didn't know how I would make it through the day, let alone the rest of my life. In those dark moments, I questioned whether I had the strength to face another challenge, to continue pushing forward. But what I realized over time was that the power to keep going wasn't something that came from my circumstances, it was something that came from within. We often look for strength in external things, support from others, physical ability, or favorable circumstances. But true strength is not something that can be given to us from the outside. It is something that we must dig deep within ourselves to find. And it's in those moments of struggle when we feel the most helpless that we are often closest to discovering our deepest reserves of strength. Strength isn't just about physical power, it's about mental and emotional resilience. It's about finding the courage to keep moving forward even when the road ahead seems impossible. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned in my life is that inner strength doesn't always roar. It doesn't always show itself in dramatic moments. Sometimes it's a quiet determination that keeps us going when everything seems to be against us. It's the decision to get up one more time, even when we've fallen down countless times before. It's the resolve to try again after failure, to keep fighting when all we want to do is give up. Inner strength is the sum of every small, consistent action we take to face our fears, to conquer self-doubt, and to keep pressing on despite the obstacles in our way. In my own life, I've had to summon inner strength on countless occasions. There were times when I felt exhausted physically, emotionally, mentally, when it seemed like every part of me wanted to quit. But in those moments, I discovered something extraordinary. I realized that my true strength wasn't just about how I could perform or how others perceived me. It was about how I chose to respond to my challenges. The strength I needed to carry on wasn't about getting everything right. It was about having the resilience to keep going, no matter how many times I stumbled along the way. Each of us has that same inner strength. It's part of who we are, and it's available to us when we need it most. The key is learning to tap into it, to trust in our ability to overcome. When we face hardships, we often feel like we're being tested beyond our limits, but in reality, we're being shown the immense power that lies within us. Our struggles don't diminish us, they reveal the depth of our strength. If you feel like you're struggling today, remember that the strength you need to overcome is already inside you. It may not always be easy to find, it may not always show up in the way you expect, but it's there. You've already survived every challenge you've faced up until now, and that alone is proof of the incredible strength you possess. The key is to keep going, even when the path seems impossible. Trust that your inner strength will carry you through because it is within you and it is waiting to be unleashed. There's an incredible power in how we choose to view the world. Our mindset is like the lens through which we experience life. It shapes the way we approach challenges, interact with others, and perceive ourselves. A positive mindset can turn an obstacle into an opportunity, while a negative mindset can turn the simplest task into an insurmountable barrier. The difference between those who thrive despite adversity and those who become defeated by it often comes down to one thing: their mindset. When I was born without limbs, I was faced with an overwhelming challenge. Society had already decided what I could or couldn't do based on what they saw on the outside. But the moment I chose to shift my perspective, when I decided that my life would not be limited by what I lacked, I began to discover the true power of mindset. My body may not have had arms and legs, but my mind was limitless. I began to see that I could still find a way to live a full, meaningful life. This mental shift didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't easy. It took time to build the belief that I could accomplish anything. But as I started to embrace that mindset, I began to realize that it wasn't the lack of limbs that defined me, it was my determination to live without limits. The power of mindset lies in its ability to shape reality. How we perceive a situation influences how we respond to it. If we approach a challenge with the mindset of "this is too difficult for me," then we are setting ourselves up for failure before we even try. But if we approach that same challenge with the mindset of "this is tough, but I will find a way to overcome it," we open the door to creative solutions, new opportunities, and personal growth. A positive mindset allows us to see setbacks not as defeats, but as temporary obstacles to be overcome. It helps us believe that no matter what stands in our way, there's always a path forward. Mindset is not just about having a can-do attitude. It's about the way we choose to interpret and respond to the events in our lives. Life will always present us with difficulties. Things will go wrong, plans will fail, and we will face setbacks. But the key to overcoming these challenges lies in how we respond. A growth mindset, the belief that we can learn, adapt, and grow through our experiences, can transform the way we deal with life's most difficult moments. With this mindset, challenges become opportunities for growth rather than insurmountable problems. When I was faced with the adversity of being born without limbs, I could have let that define me, but I chose to view it as an opportunity to show the world what was possible, despite my circumstances. One of the most powerful aspects of mindset is that it is within our control. No matter what is happening around us, we have the ability to choose how we respond. Our thoughts are powerful and they shape the way we move through life. If we believe that we are destined for failure, we will likely find ways to prove that belief true. But if we believe that we can overcome anything, we will find the courage to keep pushing forward even in the face of difficulty. The power of mindset isn't about denying the challenges we face. It's about choosing to face those challenges with an attitude of resilience, determination, and optimism. Mindset is also contagious. When we adopt a positive, growth-oriented mindset, we inspire those around us to do the same. We create an environment where others feel empowered to believe in their own potential and to push beyond their own limitations. That's the incredible thing about mindset. It has the power to transform not only our own lives, but the lives of others as well. If there's one thing I've learned in my journey, it's this: we are not defined by our circumstances, but by the way we choose to respond to them. The world may throw all kinds of challenges our way, but with the right mindset, there is nothing we cannot overcome. So when you find yourself facing a challenge, no matter how big or small, ask yourself, how can I respond in a way that helps me grow? How can I turn this obstacle into an opportunity? Your mindset holds the key to your success, and when you harness the power of a positive, growth-focused mindset, there truly are no limits to what you can achieve. There's a powerful truth that many people fail to recognize in their most difficult moments. Struggles are not just obstacles to endure, they are opportunities to discover our deepest purpose. It's easy to believe that when things are going wrong, life has no meaning. We often see our challenges as setbacks or signs that something has gone off course. But what if I told you that the very struggles we face are often the key to unlocking our true purpose? What if through the pain and hardship, we are being shaped into the person we were always meant to become? When I was born without limbs, it was difficult to understand what my life's purpose could possibly be. In a world that values physical ability, I felt like I had nothing to offer. There were times when I thought, what is the point of all of this? Why am I even here? I could have easily become consumed by the idea that my life was defined by my physical limitations, and I could have remained stuck in that mindset. But over time, I began to realize something profound. My struggles were not meaningless. They were shaping me, teaching me, and preparing me for a purpose that I could not yet see. It was through facing my challenges head on that I began to uncover my true purpose. Finding purpose in struggles doesn't always come immediately. Often it takes time, reflection, and a shift in perspective. In the moment of hardship, we can feel lost, hopeless, or unsure of our path. But as we move through the struggle and continue to persevere, we begin to notice patterns, growth, and strengths we didn't know we had. We start to see how the experiences we've had have molded us into someone capable of something greater. When I look back on the years of struggle, I now understand that every difficulty I faced was a lesson, every challenge an opportunity to grow stronger, more resilient, and more focused on my purpose. The key to finding purpose in our struggles is to look beyond the immediate pain and discomfort. Life isn't always fair, and we can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond. When we choose to see our struggles as teachers rather than burdens, we begin to shift our perspective. We start to ask, what can I learn from this? How can this experience make me better, stronger, more compassionate? It's through this kind of reflection that we begin to uncover the hidden purpose behind our struggles. Every painful experience carries with it the seed of growth, the opportunity to transform adversity into purpose. Purpose is not something that comes to us easily or effortlessly. It's often found in the moments when we are pushed to our limits, when we are faced with choices that force us to dig deep and find out who we really are. We don't always know what our purpose is from the start. In fact, it's often in the midst of our struggles that we stumble upon it. My purpose became clearer as I began to share my story, to inspire others who were facing their own battles, and to show them that no matter what obstacles they encountered, they too could find strength and meaning. What started as a personal struggle soon became a mission to help others discover their own potential and purpose. When we face challenges, we often feel isolated, as if we are the only ones going through it. But the truth is, our struggles connect us to others. They allow us to empathize, to relate, and to encourage others who are going through similar pain. Finding purpose in our struggles often means discovering how we can help others find meaning in their own. It's not just about surviving, it's about using our experiences to lift up those around us, to show them that they are not alone and that their own struggles can lead to something greater. If you're in a struggle right now and can't see the purpose in it, I encourage you to keep moving forward. The road may seem unclear and the weight may feel unbearable, but know that you are being shaped. You are being prepared for something greater than you can imagine. The purpose you are searching for is not hidden in some faraway place. It is within you, being revealed through the very struggles you face. The beauty of life is that we don't always see the full picture right away, but as we keep going, the pieces start to come together. And in time, you will realize that the purpose behind your struggles was there all along, waiting for you to discover it. Fear is a powerful force. It can paralyze us, hold us back, and prevent us from taking the risks necessary to grow and reach our potential. In its worst form, fear keeps us locked in a cycle of doubt and hesitation, convincing us that we are not capable of achieving our dreams or overcoming the challenges in our lives. But what if we could use that fear, instead of allowing it to control us, to propel us forward? What if we could transform fear into fuel, turning it from an obstacle into the very thing that drives us to succeed? Fear has been a constant companion throughout my life. From the moment I was born without limbs, the fear of not being accepted, the fear of being judged, and the fear of failure were always present. There were times when fear felt overwhelming, when it seemed like the world would never understand me or that my limitations would always define me. I could have easily let that fear paralyze me, letting it dictate my decisions and limit my actions. But over time, I learned a powerful lesson. Fear doesn't have to control us. Instead, it can be the catalyst for change, the spark that ignites our drive to overcome. Fear at its core is simply a response to the unknown. It's a natural reaction to stepping out of our comfort zone, to facing situations where the outcome is uncertain. But uncertainty doesn't have to be something to fear, it can be something to embrace. When we face the unknown, we are presented with an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to expand beyond our current limitations. The key to transforming fear into fuel is to stop viewing it as a threat and start seeing it as a signal that we are on the verge of something new, something exciting, and something worth pursuing. The first step in transforming fear into fuel is acknowledging it. Too often we try to suppress or avoid our fears, thinking that if we ignore them, they will go away. But fear doesn't disappear just because we choose to ignore it. Instead, it festers and grows stronger, ultimately controlling us. When I started to face my fears head on, I realized that the fear I had been running from was actually an invitation to push past my limits. Fear is not something to hide from, it's something to confront, to understand, and to use as a stepping stone for progress. For example, there were many moments in my life when I feared that people would see me as weak or incapable because of my physical condition. I feared being rejected, laughed at, or underestimated, but the more I confronted those fears, the more I realized that my true strength wasn't in trying to hide my limitations, but in embracing them. Fear taught me to dig deeper, to find creative ways to do things that others assumed I couldn't. It forced me to think differently, to see possibilities where others saw barriers. And in the process, I found a strength I never knew existed within me. Fear also forces us to question our assumptions. It challenges us to take a deeper look at what we truly believe about ourselves and the world around us. What we often find is that the things we fear are not as powerful as we thought. The fear of failure, for example, can be a powerful motivator to avoid taking risks. But when we realize that failure is not the end of the road, but simply a part of the journey, we start to see it as an opportunity to learn and grow. In this way, fear can be transformed into a force that drives us forward rather than holding us back. As we learn to face our fears, we begin to see them not as something to avoid, but as a sign that we are pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zone. Fear becomes the fuel that pushes us to take action, to keep going when we might otherwise stop. It becomes the energy that drives us to prove to ourselves that we are capable of more than we ever imagined. And when we realize that we have the power to transform fear into fuel, we begin to unlock a new level of strength, determination, and resilience. So the next time fear arises in your life, don't run from it. Don't let it control you. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn from this fear? How can it propel me forward? How can it become the fuel that drives me to achieve my dreams? Fear is not something to be afraid of. It is something to embrace. When you harness it and turn it into fuel, you will find that nothing is impossible.